All right, great. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to see everybody here in 2022, and good opportunity, I always think, to, just like we did kind of mid-year last year, to be able to touch base and open up to a lot of things. Same thing here with the new year, to be available with you and kind of set the table for the new year from a lot of things from my perspective. First of all, as was announced earlier today, I'm very humbled and honored to be able to be extended here as athletic director at the University of South Florida. I'm very grateful and want to thank President Law, Chairman Will Weatherford, Vice Chairman Mike Griffin for their confidence in me and allowing me to continue to extend the opportunity to lead this athletic department going forward for additional 5 years. So again, I'm humbled and very grateful and excited about what we've accomplished, but also what we're going to be able to continue to accomplish going forward. When I first assumed this role 3.5 years ago, I expressed at that time at that press conference how I felt called to be here and to continue some of the great work that some of my mentors like Paul Griffin and Leroy Selman had done and accomplished here, and to be able to kind of keep moving that forward is something that's very important to me. And while I certainly never expected more than half of my tenure to date to be during a worldwide pandemic, or that I'd soon be working with my fourth president in a 3.5 year period of time, I clearly love it here. I love everyone associated with USF, and I love the Tampa Bay region. So this is a real honor for me to be able to continue in this capacity. We have managed through this crisis well, in my opinion. We've accomplished a lot despite the crisis and the pandemic, and now very much look forward to an era that we can kind of focus on strategy and alignment to kind of create the unprecedented and sustainable level of success that USF fans everywhere have always wanted. Like a wise man once told me, kind of we need to look more, take more of a 10 years view than a 10-game view. And how do you do that? And part of that is how you are able to build the long thing. You can't get too up, too down about everything that happens. You got to kind of weather the storm and move things forward, and that's exactly what Bulls Nation expects us to do and what we've been able to do so far. So with that, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to be a part of this. A quick look back on some of the success just here in 2021, because I never want to let that opportunity go by when things happen so instantaneously and day to day that you do need to take a reflect back on successes that are happening, no matter what's going on in our worlds, to remember the 7 conference titles that occurred in the midst of a 21 calendar year, 9 postseason opportunities in that same time frame. The co-ed cheerleaders national championship to happen last year was the first for them. Continued unprecedented academic success for our Bulls student athletes, now heading into 14 straight semesters of a cumulative 3.0 or greater. That's just amazing when you think about 500 student athletes cumulatively doing that well with the leadership that they get from their coaches and get support from their academic services and faculty and beyond. So we're very pleased with becoming that comprehensive athletic department we've all wanted to be, because you can't lose sight of that mission. At the end of the day, that's one thing I keep stressing. That's the one thing that changes us, and I know people get cynical about it. We want to win. We want to help young men and women reach the next level sports-wise. But the mission is still to allow them to graduate and make their dreams come true after they're done playing, and that's what we're able to do at a high level here at USF. We quickly were able to get the $3 million worth of enhancements done here in the Leroy Selman Center last calendar year, both in the locker room and in some rooms upstairs. Ipf Groundbreaking, which was, again, a huge milestone for us that can't be overlooked and can't be repeated enough, especially when considering a great lion's share of that money had to be raised during the teeth in the midst of a pandemic. So as you can see outside, anytime you want to drive by on Sycamore, or for those that are here in the room now, it's great to see progress happening each and every day, and that'll continue. And we're currently continue to be on schedule and looking forward to the opportunity in the summer and fall to be able to use that to its fullest capacity in 2022. One thing I also always love to keep mentioning, and I think sometimes maybe we've taken it for granted because it's funny to look how quickly it's shifted, is that I'm very also proud of our external units in terms of what they've done, creating a true broadcast division for USF athletics. It wasn't long ago when we might get a game on streamed here or there. You might get obviously some good radio work that we have with some great people in our department, but to now in essence almost have each and every game that we play as part of our American Athletic Conference package being done and produced by our own people here at USF to bring that to our fans if they can't be here in the stadiums and in the arenas is really great. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback from our fans, but I hope they just take time to recognize, because I personally believe that our unit has done that at at a level beyond anyone in our conference, and are very proud of that. So I think we got to take a look at that. Obviously, the announcement of an on-campus stadium for last year was a huge thing, and going to be a big North Star for us moving forward, not only this year, but throughout the rest of my now extended tenure, is that's going to be a big part of the whole strategic plan, clearly. And when Chairman Weatherford mentioned that and kind of made it a reality back in September, and for now it to be on President Law's goals as a president, which that's certainly never happened in our history at USF, and for myself to be able to co-chair the internal working group with Jay Stroman, our university foundation president, to move that forward is a real honor. And obviously that's going to lead to not only great things for athletics, but also for campus life and for other things within the USF community. So more to come on that. Lots of news and milestones that will hit in relation to that great project here over the course of the next year. So simply a great year overall, and I really appreciate all of our staff, our student athletes, and of course all of Bulls Nation for helping us achieve all those things. I'd also like to just say that in addition to you got to kind of take a look back and beyond COVID and what has transpired in terms of adjustments people have had to make and kind of the way we've had to react. It's an unprecedentedly, I don't know what the right terminology, but let's just call it a very volatile type of time frame in college sports, with so much change happening, so many things happening that have never happened before. And when you think that any one of the items I'm about to mention, that if they would have happened in the past in any one given year, would have been a tumultuous thing, and the fact they're all happening now simultaneously is what makes things really challenging, and why a lot of things that we'll talk about today and that I announced recently that I feel it's more important than ever that we have stability and continuity at key positions within the athletic department, because there's ways to tackle it and make sure we not only learn the different aspects of these things, but also how we at USF can best navigate it and put it best to our advantage. And so obviously the things I'm talking about, things like name, image, and likeness, we prepared well for it. There's ways that our student athletes can take advantage of it, but that's going to be a key thing this year, that we have to continue to find ways to provide to whatever extent the law, or whatever extent once the NCAA makes more determinations on what you can and can't do in that regard. It's clearly, whether we like it or not, it's going to clearly be a huge thing in terms of what we need to be able to provide our student athletes. As I expressed before when we were together in the summer, I like it a lot. How can we provide more benefits to our student athletes is a great thing. Our only shortcoming right now is what are we allowed to do, and we're still looking for some better clarity on that. But what we can do, and what we have done, is provide a lot of education, provide tools through our Boost program, through our influencer arrangement, that have allowed our student athletes to get prepared. But I look for that whole NIL concept to gain better clarity this year and be able to move on in different directions. Clearly, the conference realignment aspect of things is huge, and we've talked about that before in terms of how it affects our conference, some that are moving on, and how it needs to continue to be two things basically have to be the focus of almost every decision we make and every strategy we plan for, and it's one of two things. First, it's how do you either position yourself for another conference, or more importantly, how do you make the American all that it can be in terms of maximizing its revenue. So obviously we've done a great job being able to maintain our television revenues that we have with ESPN. We're hoping, I'll talk in a minute about CFP. We still hope that can be another great opportunity for more revenue that can help all of the American schools, if that does indeed expand once the commissioners get together next week in Indianapolis. But what I am stressing to our staff, and I'll stress it to all of Bulls Nation, is that every step we take in terms of investment in our student athletes, investment in our coaches, fundraising that we do, investment in our facilities, the keen eye has to be that no matter what happens, we need to, if you play a name association game in the next couple years with the American Athletic Conference, it has to continue to lead to having USF or that Bull U be one of the first things that pops into your mind. All right, and we're achieving that in many, many ways. We've got a great university. We're the fastest rising university in the country. We're in the fastest growing region in the United States, in Tampa Bay. We've won many championships that I've already outlined over the course of the time, but clearly we know we need to continue to improve in football, and we want to be able to improve in basketball and all of our sports. But clearly, by doing that, making an investment, we have to recognize that being the leader in anything we can gravitate toward in the American Athletic Conference is the key to our future. And I don't say that and the reason I don't necessarily say that because of any other conference is because it really matters that the American continue to solidify itself as it relates to the national scene, which I'm getting into next when you talk about what is going to potentially happen to some extent at the convention in a couple weeks for the NCAA, when there's a lot of discussion in the Constitution of how Division I will be made up. Are there going to be other breaks in terms of D1, in terms of FBS? Is there going to be even a smaller version of FBS? Is there going to be a bigger version of FBS? Whatever it is, we have to be at the forefront, study it, be strategic about it, make sure that we do everything we can to be on the right side of where we want to be, which is why I'm very grateful also to kind of also be serving midway through my first year as a member of the D1 Council, the Division I Council for the NCAA, which I represent USF and the American Athletic Conference on that, and look forward to being in person in Indianapolis at that convention in the coming weeks. In addition to all those things moving around, obviously we've had a lot of things that, with the transfer portal, and it's not just so much the portal, but it's really the combination of the portal, extra COVID years, and the combination of the one-time transfer rule. So when all those things kind of coming together, I think that's why this year and next you've seen a huge explosion of it. I think it's always going to, I think we all have to condition ourselves that it's still going to be businesses. That's just the way business is going to be now, because it does provide the proper flexibility for student athletes to make that move if they're so inclined. And there's a variety of different reasons that we see that and happening at every school in the country. And I think what people have to realize is that when they take the blinders off of just following their own school, it's truly happening everywhere. It's just something that coaches and administrators are going to have to get used to, and fans are going to have to start to get used to that. That's just kind of the new reality of what happens. And again, at the end of the day, having flexibility for those young men and women is, in my opinion, a good thing. It's just a matter of you want to create the best culture that you can create, and give them the best vision and strategy of why you want to be at USF. And again, if you're in the fastest rising university in the fastest growing region in the country, and in what I consider one of the best places in the world to live in Tampa Bay, that's the speech as it relates to USF. So as I give you all that background, I just wanted to kind of express, as I kind of take it all in and kind of an active player in it, it's what kind of helps guide my decisions and some of the things that have happened recently to kind of try to continue to provide a more strategic approach to things going forward. That's not a criticism of anyone else before. That's not a criticism of myself or my staff before. The reality is that I just think for at least certainly these last couple of years, and really to some extent for a long time here at USF, we've almost lived in a day-to-day crisis mode. You kind of move from one thing to the next in terms of trying to get there, as opposed to being able to focus long-term as to what are we trying to get to in this next, as it's expressed now in my 6 years that I have left here at USF to work. So when you look at that, that's where I kind of come back to what was announced yesterday, and the fortification of having stability at coaches that serve as great leaders in this department to kind of move the department forward. And while in essence, I think people, because again, in the sea of change, I truly believe, as I expressed yesterday in the announcement, that our best path forward is to become stable, become a team of one, if you will, to move forward through a lot of different things. And while each head coach, of course, serves in essence, if you think about it from my perspective, as a department head of their sport, collectively, and we've really come together well over these last couple of years, in my opinion, or at least I've appreciated the way they've come together during my tenure, is that collectively they come together in what we call Team USF. We've been able to study in our monthly coaches meetings all these different changes, being able to share best practices and thoughts together in terms of how to tackle certain things, and it's been very helpful. We don't need silos in our sports here, and I really have felt again that camaraderie that comes with not only supporting each other and being there for each other, but hey, we got to learn from each other in terms of how we navigate these waters, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. They're also all very, again, back to the mission I talked about that's unique about college sports. We've exhibited with that success I rattled off with academic and graduation statistics. All these coaches have obviously understood that mission and have kind of realized that that's an important part in addition to the competitive aspect of things. I wanted to, before we kind of get to questions, I just wanted to, again, you saw the announcement yesterday. We've got all 14 of our coaches are now contracted at least through 2023, in many cases longer than that. That's important for recruiting, for all sports. They know your coach is going to be there. They know there's a commitment to that coach to be successful and a belief in him or her. So I think that's all key. And then with them being able to learn together with Team USF about what we're trying to move forward with in terms of how we tackle NIL, how we tackle our overall approach to championships and to success and excellence. It's a really, really good thing. It's kind of funny. It's no small feat to be able to get that many contracts done. Many of my friends in the sports business, like professional GMs or presidents, are like, hey, I have one coach. I have one coach and one staff. You guys got 14 in this case, or in some bigger programs have, God knows, 25, 30. So it's a lot. Each one's a little bit, each one's a little different, and you kind of look at the circumstance different. But again, my approach as I started to sit down over it was, all right, we've had time to weather this to evaluate what we need to do going forward, and these are the folks that we want to move forward with. So make it very clear. I mean, whether I originally hired them or not, at this point, everyone's either been hired or retained by me. So these are my coaches. I have full faith in them, and together we're going to move together in terms of achieving all the goals we have for Bulls Nation. So I won't go through each and every one, but just trying to anticipate some questions that you might have to provide some context. I thought it might be important. The other thing I thought was, that I'll point out with some of these examples as well, is that, back to not only the stability, but to showing that when you can provide the patience and the support for a program and provide tenure, if you will, we've got great examples even right here in our own department of when that has proven successful. And I know that in this, again, back to that 10-game versus 10-year analogy, it's easy to get really too high or too low after a certain win or a certain loss. And again, as I've tried to evaluate it, I really do try to look at it in terms of the big picture of things, and trying to know everything we're trying to accomplish and be able to move things forward. So if you take, Jose Fernandez, obviously we've extended him all the way through 2027. He's a great example. I mean, 22nd year, someone that took a program that was struggling at the time when he took it over, and has been able to gradually make it into what I consider a power, and a power that we want it to be. And not only finding ways to be a very dominant player in the American, and now trying to make the next steps, becoming a dominant player on the national scene. So to have him extended through this is a huge deal, and we're excited to have Jose lined up through that. When you talk about Denise Schulte Brown in her 15th year, again, another coach winning 5 straight championships, 15th year. Wasn't always there. Before she got here, we hadn't won a conference championship before. It takes time, develop, patience, build, go through it. Obviously, Ken Erickson in his 25th year, consistently successful year in, year out. So, again, you can make that case, as you saw in the release yesterday, for a great many of our coaches, quite frankly, but I just kind of wanted to call that attention when I kind of look at things, that I think patience pays off when it needs to, and you have to find ways to look at, hey, what else can you do? It's not just for the coach themselves, but what else can you learn about what student athletes need? What else can we do as a program to make sure that we're being successful as well? Because there's a lot of factors that go into wins and losses. As was also noted, we did also extend the contract of Brian Gregory, our men's basketball coach. Again, it's a situation where he did also inherit a situation coming off of a probation at the time when he took over. Has led us to a season that had the most wins in our history of over 50 plus years. So quite frankly, back when we had that year, we started discussions of extension and raise at that point in time. And as we kind of we're continuing those discussions, that's when COVID hit, and it kind of made a time when our economics, as you know, we weren't able to do much new of anything when we were kind of cutting back a lot of things a couple of years ago, and have since deferred some of that in Brian's case. And so it was a deal that I made. It's a deal I stand by, because I believe in him and the progress that we're going to have. Going back to looking at that patience thing that we talk about in that 24-win season we had a couple of years ago, I went back and looked at the success and the model that Jose's program shows for us. In his first 4 seasons at USF, he was 39-72. And then Brian's first 4 years were 57-66. And including the winningest season we've had in 50 plus years. So again, it comes back to a good example of, while there's dips and challenges in each and every sport, there's 3 or 4 years when Ken Erickson didn't make the NCAAs. It's just, there's times where you can hit certain things, but fortunately in those cases, USF administrators have shown the patience and the value in it, and obviously we feel the same way with our 14 coaches right now. And then lastly, I'll just mention, obviously, Jeff Scott, another circumstance here where a relatively new coach, he just finished his second year. I just feel that with kind of combination of COVID in his first year where we truly only had 1 day of spring practice, I feel that in addition to the unforeseen and certainly nothing that he had ever done aspect of the probation that ended up hitting us here at USF because of the prior staff for football. And when I look at the culture, the recruiting that I am very encouraged by to see the #1 transfer recruiting class, I just have as much confidence as I expressed to you last summer in Coach Scott, and not to mention his role to me as a fundraising partner in terms of these initiatives that we've got to have. He's been instrumental with me and our Bulls Club staff getting the funds raised for the indoor performance facility, and then obviously he's going to play a key role and a visionary in terms of what we're going to do with our on-campus stadium as well. So I know there'll be questions about all 14 of ours. They all have great reasons to be a part of our team going forward, and it's why I believe in them and believe in the young women and men that they've attracted and their staffs. So that's why I feel so bullish, if you will, on our progress moving forward. So with that, again, for all these reasons and more, that's why I feel that USF going forward this year and in the years to come need to kind of weather this sea of uncertainty with stability, with alignment, and again, as I started with the opening of this press conference, because of the confidence that I feel from the Board of Trustees and from President Law to be able to allow me to continue in this role, it gives me great confidence and comfort to be able to continue this continuity and bring things forward. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions before we might close out the session. So I thank you for indulging my thoughts.
Obviously, from a national perspective, obviously they're not, folks might not be in the building every day and know the ins and outs of why, even why we know why everyone has been extended, especially in Jeff Scott and Brian Gregory's case. What can you say to those folks, from the outside that aren't in the building every day that, there's more to it than records and wins and losses?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And as I expressed before, there are so many things to being a college coach, and particularly for me here at USF. How are we recruiting? Coach Scott is recruiting at a high level. Coach Gregory, we've recruited some of the highest rated players in USF history under his tenure, which gives you confidence for the future. We started a lineup last week with 3 freshmen and a senior. So that leads you to think, 4 freshmen and a senior, which gives you kind of thoughts for the future as well. So to me, to have a team player, a leader, someone that's buying into Team USF overall in terms of what we need to accomplish in the American long term, to assist with fundraising, to ultimately assist with being a role model for academics and for other things that our student athletes need. When you look at all of these coaches, they've all contributed to that collective success. And for me, it's easy to look at. I understand what you mean from looking from a national person or outside of the realm of Bulls Nation to just look at quick records over the last 2 years, but maybe not looking into where we were before they inherited it, what they've had to encompass since then, and what are we doing to get out of it and get better. And when I see people that are willing to take constructive criticism, willing to make change, willing to work hand in hand with me and our administration to move forward, that's why we move forward. And they've all demonstrated success before, and as I mentioned, we've got plenty of probably almost half of our I'll call them tenured coaching staffs here at head coaches here at USF that have proven that hey, if someone gave up on them too early, they would have missed a big thing. There's a lot of coaches you can look at in that. I don't know. It seems like John Wooden didn't get to the NCAA tournament until the 10th year. Coach K would have been run out of town under current things, and I just happen to be someone that's patient and look at it with just more of a big picture perspective and trying to compare it to, hey, what have we accomplished here before in that sport? What can we do differently to make that, to help us get better? And a lot of it's been, some things are in place and some things are yet to be in place. But at the end of the day, the short-winded answer to you is that do they ultimately believe in what we're trying to accomplish here at USF? Are they going to do it the right way? They're going to be a good teammate when all those things add up, and we still have faith in what they're doing. Then I'm glad to have them as a member of Team USF.
Michael, the on-campus stadium, any rough ETA even, and what's been done as far as funding to this point? What still needs to be done? Any kind of updates along those lines?
Yeah, Tom. Not much since we had a trustee meeting back in mid-December, and that was the last report that we really made. We have had some meetings since then. But our goal, kind of, I would say, by the middle of this year, if not sooner, would be to be able to specifically identify the location on campus, which there's some that we're considering, and certainly wouldn't have all the fundraising done by then, but at least to identify probably the breadth of the scope of money we can put into it, and what are the funding sources going to be. But those are kind of our next two things, is kind of identifying exactly maybe the breadth of the overall budget and the exact location that we hope to be able to have done this spring. And then long term, as I expressed, I think, we've said anywhere between 26 and 28 in terms of the seasons is when we would start playing that. I've just shared on my podcast and at that meeting, if it could come to fruition, a date that makes sense to me in the middle of that range is on September 4th of 27. We're contracted to host University of Miami, and I think that would be a pretty cool opening day for the stadium. So in my own mind, that's probably what I'm thinking. But if I can get it done faster, I think my bosses would be happier. And if it takes a little longer, it's understandable. It's a big project, and it's going to be a transformational project, not just for the athletic department, but really for the University of South Florida. I think it'll be such a big thing for campus life, and ultimately for to bring people back to campus, and again, just part of the long-term university mission. But in the meantime, as I've said many times, we play in a world-class facility that our players love to play in, and our fans are very comfortable being in. So we love Raymond James, and we'll be there until we open the door. But it would work out fine for that 27 season with the way that our options work on our current lease with Raymond James. So it almost would dovetail perfectly into that.
You mentioned taking a 10-year approach versus a 10-game approach, and a couple of decades ago you were on the staff here, so you've seen different eras. Is your decision to do this kind of a product of what you've studied over all those years, and kind of here's what worked at USF, here's what didn't work, and just the realization that stability is one of the keys to make it work?
Well, we still have a relatively young history, so it's kind of hard to look too far back, Joey. But clearly, when I think of, when I look at Paul Griffin when he was AD here, there was times when he certainly could have been easy to make a change on some things. I think Coach Pascal comes to mind when maybe there were some years that weren't that great at the start, and sticking with his guy and allowing time to grow became obviously one of the most winningest coaches in our department's history, and went on to an NCAA berth and everything else. So, but I guess I'm just while I'm a patient man, I mainly look for roles. Like every loss hurts me, no matter what, right? I take it very personally. So I try to always ask myself when I walk out of that arena or soccer field or whatever it is like, what can I or we do to help that coach or student athlete be successful? I think society's too quick to say, oh, it's that coach or it's that player. It's like, there's usually a lot of things out there, and as long as if I feel there's willing partners and there's people that are pulling their weight to make things happen, that's when I still have confidence and faith in those folks to make it happen. But obviously, I've shown the propensity to make changes when I don't think there's reason not to. So it's not that I'm not afraid to make the change or make the hard decision. This is just an example where I fully believe in these coaches and these their staffs and their student athletes that they've brought into this department. And so we're going to do it together and move forward.
Michael, what did you see on the field with football this year that renewed your confidence or strengthened your confidence in Jeff Scott's future?
Well, number one, with probably the exception of the Tulane game, which remains a mystery to me, every other game I felt that we never gave up. We showed great. Obviously, there were many games in there that we could have won that were in the midst of being competitive, where in some recent years we simply weren't, whether from talent level, engagement level, whatever it was. So when I saw that level of focus and energy, even despite the record or the score, that gave me great hope. It's usually easy to, and the fact that we're on 2 years in a row, we've been a score down from beating our rival, and kind of shows people are willing to keep fighting, keep going. So, but I also, I don't know if you, I would hope you would agree, and those of you that have been around them more often, I feel that the staff is aligned. They're so energetic. They're so encouraging. I feel that the student athletes, at least the ones that come to express themselves to me, feel great about where they're at. I think, especially in this, again, there's going to be turnover in every program. I've told you that. But the relatively few people I think that have really elected not to come back if they could have come back to here, it kind of speaks to, I think, our football players are excited about. I think they see it. I think they feel it, that they're on the verge and they don't want to miss out. I don't think, and I would say that to Bulls Nation, you don't want to give up now when you kind of when you're already climbed up the mountain. You want to kind of enjoy the spoils in the next couple of years to come. So we're kind of on schedule. I mean, Coach Scott and I knew that there was a lot to do, and you know, I can't. No one's satisfied or happy at all with a 2-win season this year. Don't get me wrong, but I think people see potential. There could have been a handful of other games that would have tipped that scale in a different direction, and again, you got to get done. I get that, but to me, I saw enough of it and encouraged enough about the recruiting. And again, it comes back to even our prior coaches, to be quite fair and honest, is that they didn't always have all the tools to get done what they needed to do. Were we doing what we needed to do as an athletic department? Were we doing what we needed to do as a fan base? And in some respects, maybe we weren't. And as you and I have talked about before, getting that IPF cranking and started is huge. Getting that, making the strategic decision to not necessarily wait till we could get every penny and do something very good for the team right now with the locker room and show some progress was very vital. And now to come with the trump card of having a stadium on the other end of that now. If you want to look at it right now, hey, here we are on January the 5th of 2022. I'm almost saying, like, forget about where we were, any coach was, whatever. It's like it's starting now. We know where we are. We're coming out of the pandemic. It's kind of a starting point from my standpoint, and you know what's important. You know where you're going to be held accountable for. So in my mind, I've kind of like, all right, excuses over. We know what we need to do. We've got the right team together, and now we move forward, and we'll evaluate and be accountable to each other, including myself. From this point forward.
Looking at the bat and ball sports real quick, obviously baseball has a terrific Cinderella story postseason, and Ken Erickson continues to get to regional finals.
Mm-hmm.
When you looked at those in particular, you know, just kind of what were your thoughts in extending them for as long as you extended them for? Were you a little surprised in that Ken Erickson wants to do this for another, 5-6 years?
Well, that's a great question. Wasn't surprised. Ken's still very excited and motivated. I think he's particularly excited and motivated by the fact that he's only coaching one team now, which has been great. He loved doing it, and we were glad to let him do it. But I can see him almost being reinvigorated to kind of be able to spend even more time, obviously, just focused on one team instead of multiple. So he seems energized, very focused on getting back to the College World Series. I guess this is going to be our 10-year anniversary since he was there. So he's mentioned that to me a couple times, so that proves that he's motivated on that. And then, yes, Billy was down to his last year. Obviously, we had a great run, but to me, it wasn't just the run last year. Billy wants to be here. He expressed to me how he wanted to be here. You got to look at particularly a lot of our Olympic coaches, folks, and Jose. I get called a lot. I mean, the success we've been having in many sports, people come calling for our coaches. So to me, to be able to show them the type of investment that we did is important to keep them there if you come back to my strategy of trying to keep people intact. And that investment kind of goes not only to help us be successful, but again, back to being successful and hopefully dominant in all sports, if not the ones that we already are in the American, and almost to be attractive no matter how it is in another conference or if it is in D1, how they evaluate whatever they want to in the future. If you're not making the investment, then we're not going to be in that party. And so that's why, again, part of this is that people can say, why would they do that? Why would they do this? It's like, all right, if you show that you're spending the least amount in men's basketball, are you serious about men's basketball? And so right now, hey, we are clearly the dominant investor in women's basketball in the conference by far. Well, guess what? We're doing pretty damn well too. So how do we we needed to raise our game in football in terms of how we were investing in facilities. Now we got to, now we'll do the same in others that are currently not doing that. But when you look at it, all these coaches, when you look at the various contracts that they have, one measuring stick you have to do is also not only where they are right now, but you kind of have to look at the market not only to be successful for them and to be good to them and give them kind of fair market value, but it is almost a way to fend off others that might come and seek their services. And obviously you want to show, as just like when we selected the 6 schools that are coming into the American, we picked the ones that demonstrated investment. And so we've got to do the same thing. We need to understand that as a fan base and as an athletic department, that we have to kind of show the same thing: investment in student athlete welfare, investment in what they can do for NIL, investment in facilities, and ultimately investment in coaching staffs.
What have you learned in the 6 months or whatever it is about NIL that you didn't know in June?
I don't think I necessarily learned anything that I didn't expect. I guess the only thing, the frustration I have with it, Matt, is just what can, it's here, it's happening. Some things are, we've probably had 100 kids, a little over 100 kids that have had some sort of transaction, all pretty meager in our situation. But so that's good. I mean, that's part of what it was intended to do. But now it's really trying to get. I'm ready to do whatever we can to support our student athletes even more. It's just a little bit of ambiguity of, all right, what's in the state law? I've seen some great things from Chip Lamarca that's trying to change some rules, because right now you kind of have to stay. There's only so many things an administrator or a coach or someone can do. It's fine if that's the rules, but if the rules are going to be something different in another state, or if the NCAA is going to change something, then quite frankly, I just want to be able to provide everything that we possibly can and lose that ambiguity. But because obviously it's not something we're going to go do that's going to jeopardize anything from an NCAA compliance standpoint. So these watershed cases that you see that kind of got a lot of publicity that are now supposed to be investigated by NCAA, that's going to be important to know. So I really hope state law can continue to get some changes, because let's be fair, Florida was positioned to be very aggressive and a leader in it, and we would have been. Then when the NCAA didn't really adjust with some clear rulings, other states almost came in to be even more permissive, and now they're totally within the rules. So we need clarity on that as an industry, because I want to be able to. We know it's going to be here, so how can our staff adjust? We were talking the other day, when it's permissible, or if it's possible. Who can you partner with? Who can you? What donors that have been asking to help? How can we instruct them to help? And until we get that clarity, it's hard to do. But so I guess the only thing I've learned is I'm disappointed in the still lack of clarity of what's happened. But fundamentally, no matter how big or small some of these transactions are, that's great. That's what the kids should have been able to have all along, like a regular student could have had.
Michael, these last couple months, you also announced the addition of a sport.
Yes.
Women's lacrosse, and certainly in the Sunshine State, you could see the growth of the sport at the club, high school, and university levels. How does that sport fit into your picture for what's being done here with USF Athletics?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I neglected to say that as part of the things going on. That when I talk OCS, facility improvements, and new sports are all part of that too. And you're right. So with women's lacrosse coming on board, we knew that was as we have a vision to add at least one more sport beyond women's lacrosse that we'll announce here in the first quarter. I'm pretty confident of this year. But women's lacrosse, as you said it well. It's a really growing sport, and scholastically here in Florida. I think we're up to 67 plus programs in the country at Division I level. Since we made that announcement in early November, we get daily emails from high school students that are eager to want to come and play for a new D1 program. We've got an immediate route in through our conference to a handful of our schools already play, in addition to affiliate members with University of Florida and Vanderbilt in our conference. So it's a great opportunity for us to I think not only provide a great sport on a great growing sport for women, but also one I anticipate being able to be very successful at very quickly because of the success not only of students here in Florida, but you're also seeing it's such a prominent sport in the Mid-Atlantic and New England region as well, and it's pretty nice out today. It's pretty attractive for a young lady to come play lacrosse at USF.
You mentioned COVID, and that's affected all your coaches and sports in a lot of different ways. But specifically, I want to ask you about men's basketball. Right before we shut down, the men's basketball team was on a roll, but didn't get to play its conference tournament. And then last year, it missed like a month or whatever it was, and was starting and stopping constantly. So is that part of your view too, in terms of where you think men's basketball is? There's been a lot of complications the last few years that have.
Well, I think there was a particular impact on men's basketball. It had a huge impact on women's basketball last year too, that we were able to recover about to a certain extent. But I would just say that I think fans can't underestimate the impact COVID's made on college campuses. It's it's no coincidence that every one of these coaches have been a part of our team during COVID, because I admired what they did in terms of putting the student-athlete welfare first, putting their health first based on the guidance of our sports medicine staff. All that was critical. But you're right, when you have a 34-day pause in men's basketball last year, I saw Leonard Hamilton speak to it the other day when he had a couple-week pause. He's like, when we came back, it was like, you know, we were like a 40-year-old Y team, you know, coming back from that kind of a break when you're used to playing every single day. It's impactful. So, yeah, I guess probably more than maybe some fans would. I do have to look at, all right, there were some disappointing things in some of these seasons in any sport, and even men's basketball last year, but what are the reasons why? And a 34-day pause in the middle of it can be a pretty big reason why. And so that wasn't lost on me either as you evaluate this. And you kind of have to take it, again, holistically in terms of the big picture.
What's your level of optimism that CFP power brokers, all of them, are going to be able to agree on something this weekend and expand?
I sure hope so. I mean, obviously, it's no one truly knows for sure. You know, it seemed like it was on a great path. I still particularly like the original proposal they put forth back in June. I think, obviously, selfishly from where I sit today, it's the best thing for USF and for the American Athletic Conference, but I'll speak personally as well. I also think it's the best thing for college football as well. Not only for the opportunity for more teams to at least get a chance to play in it and challenge for a national championship, but also it would create more revenue and that would create, you know, more opportunities for all of us. But as I said in the outset last summer, I want it to whatever benefits the American right now in USF, because I want Jeff Scott and his colleagues to be able to go into the locker room in August and say, guys, we win the American, we've got a really good chance to get into it. And obviously Cincinnati was able to even prove it's possible even without that, and we're proud of them and we're happy for them. But they're another great example of a program that you know, invested well, got very focused on it, and it's paid dividends. So I anticipate us being the same.
Everything we've seen in college sports the last few years kind of runs counter to what you've done the last couple of days in terms of patience. It seems like everything is accelerated. We've seen a football coach be fired 2 years after winning a national championship, things like that. So do you feel like you're running counter to the climate out there by doing these things?
I do. I do feel I'm running counter to it. I think in society today that things sometimes are, again, we have a tendency to get too high, too low, maybe from where we were generations ago. But that's not saying that everyone else is not doing what's right for their program and their circumstances. But when I look at our resources, when I look at the best way for us to take advantage of our strengths, when I look at and when I just think about the best path forward, is like I believe that we have excellent coaches. We need to be able to provide more resources to do anything we can with, you know, for our student athletes, and that's what's going to help us get better. It's not going to be by changing coaches every 2 or 3 years. It's about how can we learn from what we've seen before? Why have we maybe not been successful in certain sports before that we're now doing differently in terms of providing for? And let's see what we can do. But yeah, it is. There's no question it's a different trend, but every athletic director has to look at it in terms of where they sit, and that's a wide gamut in Division I. I mean, let's face it, we're kind of in the middle of it all, but there's some folks that have a lot less resources, and God knows there's a lot that have a lot more, and that sometimes that patience has to run thin if you're kind of investing that level. So we're playing big. We're obviously playing big time, and it's real dollars. I'm just trying to be the smartest I can with them in terms of going with coaches that I think have already learned maybe how to be successful here, and that we have the belief to kind of move forward together to give them what they need. Once we give people what they need, then you hold them accountable, and we move on from there. I think that's, you know, I always admired Jeremy Foley when he was at Florida, and granted Florida has a lot more resources than we, but that was his approach when I was a rising administrator. Whenever I heard him speak, he's like, look, you talk to those coaches, you support them all the way, find out what they need to be successful. You do everything you can to deliver those things that they said to be successful, and then we evaluate them. So for now, again, I think if people are doing the right thing, have the right vision aligned with mine, you know, working hard at it, and then figuring out what we got to do to be successful. And it's my job to give it to them, and if I can't, then it's hard for me to hold them exclusively accountable for it if I'm not delivering what they need to have.
What have you learned about yourself, you know, kind of through the pandemic as we kind of continue to go through it all, and, you know, your
Well, it takes a toll on me. I still believe in the patients. I've always been kind of a calm, rational person from my perspective, and try to be very analytical about things. Try to look for a lot of reasons why. But because of so many things out of your control right now, it is very frustrating. But I'm sure all of you feel the same way in your own lives. I guess that's the real frustration I have right now. Is like we thought we're kind of on the edge, and now we've had a couple games already canceled because of things totally out of our control. And so that bothers me. And again, and maybe I'm just an old soul in some ways, but I do have a little bit more of a patient approach to things, and I admire organizations that ultimately are built to be sustainable and comprehensive excellence. So that's kind of my thing, and I'm willing to, as long as I think we're doing putting the right effort, and we've got the right people in place that are aligned with vision, I'm willing to be patient to achieve long-term sustainable success. Some people may have different opinions about certain things, and I respect that, but it's my job to kind of do what I think is best for USF athletics, and to do it in a way that I think is fair.
Anything else for Michael?
Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you at, we have a men's game tonight against Houston, a women's game Sunday against Wichita. So hope to see Bulls Nation out there. Thank you.